Dorothy, where were you on Pearl Harbor Day?
I was at home. I wasn't in the service yet.
And can you remember that day?
Yes, very much. I was studying. I was in high school, and I was doing my studying.
Are you hearing enough, Carl?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so, what was your reaction? Did you enlist then, or were you old enough? Or?
No, you couldn't go in the service until you were 21. And so I went to college for 1 year. Then I worked as a Rosie the Riveter in a factory making fuse bodies for bombs. I did that for a year. And then I spent 2 years working on the ration board.
And this was where?
In Leominster, Massachusetts.
And it was mainly women you were working with? Because the men were all fighting? So, what was that like with the men away and the women having to go do everything?
It was interesting. I didn't notice it at home so much, but when you got in the service, and there were jobs that they wouldn't let the women do then that now they can do.
I liked your story about how you wanted to do a certain job. You wanted to be an aircraft controller. And tell us that story about the woman from Georgia saying you had an accent. Can you repeat that story?
When we finished boot camp, we had our choice of what jobs were available, and we could choose 3 choices. So I put aircraft controller for all 3 choices. And then the girl that interviewed me was from the Deep South, and she said I had too much of an accent. I couldn't be a controller, so she made me a mailman.
So a controller had to use their voice? They had to make announcements?
Yeah, to the guys on the plane.
So you had an accent, not she?
No.
So then you were a male person.
Yeah.
And this was handling service mail or all kinds of mail?
That was our rating as mailman.
I see. And so what did you do?
We sorted mail day and night. It was all the way around the clock. Went to all the ships. Probably I handled mail for these men that were here today. But
how long were your shifts?
There were 8 hours.
And were you living at home?
No, you were in the barracks.
In barracks.
Our barracks was a hotel on Broadway and 75th Avenue that the Navy had taken over. And we were assigned to rooms in that hotel. And because we were working shifts and we were trying to sleep during the day, and we were in with girls that were working straight days, and they'd come in and wake us up. And, so we finally went to the offices and asked if we could be assigned to a room together so that we were working the same shifts. And so they didn't have any rooms available at the time, so they put us in officer country. And it was on the 23rd floor of this hotel, overlooking the Hudson River. And we would sit in the window and watch the battleships going up and down the river.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned also that you had, being in New York City, you had some good times.
Yes, we did.
Were there lights out? Was it blackouts?
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
So did you go out in the dark or with flashlights or what?
No, it wasn't that dark. We went out. It was all right at that place, but when I lived in Brooklyn, it was a pretty rough neighborhood. And so the armed guards would take us from the subway to our barracks.
And were women running the subway system too, do you know? Were they?
There were men there. I suppose some of the men, got excused from military service because they had jobs that were essential.
What about, you mentioned going, your remembrances of VE Day.
Yeah.
Could you relate that again? Tell us what you did.
Well, my buddy, she was a big, tall girl from Indiana, and I still hear from her. And she and I would go places together. And so we went down, we had the day off. They gave everybody the day off. And we went down to Times Square to see what was going on. And it was just jam solid with humanity. And they were kissing each other and hugging and carrying on. And so we got caught up in this, and me being short, got caught in the middle, and I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, and I really thought I was going to die there. And my buddy was tall enough so she got out of it, but I gradually worked my way into a store, and I stayed there till it thinned out a little.
Wow, that must have been quite a sight.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Were there bands playing? And
all kinds of noise and thousands and thousands of people.
What other clear memories do you have of that time?
What did I do?
And when did you get some kind of a certificate or something for your service?
We got discharge papers, yeah.
And you went to school on the GI Bill then?
Yeah. I had 1 year at college before I went in, and so I went back to college and got a degree in dietetics. I was a dietitian. So one thing, what was I going to tell you? Don't know. We had some good times there. My one crazy thing we did, we got off at midnight, and my friend lived in Indiana, and we had 3 days. We got on a train and went to Indiana. Her father picked us up in Indianapolis and took us to the little town where she lived. The train was not air conditioned. This was the middle of summer. The windows were all open, and we got there, we were just coated with soot. Our hair was crusty, how. So we got cleaned up and had 1 day there with her, and her father took us back to Indianapolis, and we got on another train and went back to New York.
That was a long ride.
Oh, yeah.
And this was wintertime, you said?
No, that was the middle of summer.
It was hot. Yeah.
Our squadron was the top squadron. We were the excellent one. We got to carry the excellent flag because we had done so well. And so the honor of the flag, for being the top squadron, was you got to raise the flag every morning. This was in the middle of winter, and the wind would be howling at dawn, and we got to march over to the flagpole and stand there for 15 or 20 minutes.
This was your honor. Not 15 extra minutes in bed. But.
No.
Carl, can you think of anything else?
Well, I guess...
I'm thinking about the gentleman
yeah.
waiting.
No,
the other guy.
You were a wave.
Yeah.
when did they start? Did they actively recruit you? How did you join up? What happened?
We went into Boston to sign up and have our physical and everything, and it was accepted. Another thing that happened was I got a letter from the Navy saying that I was squadron commander for the trip into New York. They sent me a list of the people that were supposed to be on the train. And we all went in on a certain train, and at each stop I had to check in every girl that came in and make sure nobody left.
Went AWOL.
And get the whole squadron into Grand Central Station.
That was a big responsibility.
Yeah. Scared me.
They kind of sprang that on you.
Yeah.
So were your parents supportive of what you did?
My father encouraged it. He had been in the Army in World War I, and he was a medical secretary and was stationed in Georgia during the flu epidemic when all the boys were dying of flu. And so his son wasn't old enough to be in the service yet, so I was elected.
So a little parental pressure there.
Yeah.
But you weren't that far from home.
No, I went home fairly often and took buddies with me, so I always had someone to go with me. They all wanted to see New England. My father would give them the grand tour.
And this was Massachusetts? What city, what part?
Leominster, Massachusetts.
How did you get to Pinecrest?
That's another story. I married in college a guy, Air Force, and he got called back for Korea, and so we lived all over the country after that. And when he retired, we decided to come to Homestead Air Force Base. I worked down there as a Red Cross volunteer for 15 years in the hospital there.
And so now you live here?
Yep.
In Pinecrest? You live with family? Or?
My son lives with me.